Okay, we have a program today that is built all around origin stories. So to kick it off, I'm gonna start with a short origin story of my own, which happens to start on New Year's Day. January 1st, 2016, I woke up with the best of intentions. I had gone to bed the night before, planning to do the Coney Island polar bear plunge. But when I woke up, the sun was very high in the sky. And looking at the clock, I realized I had overslept, and not by like 20 minutes, by like 5 hours. But oversleeping that day would actually kick off a series of events that would dramatically change my life. See, at that point, since college, I had worked as a classroom teacher, first because it was a great way to live abroad, and then because the contracts kept coming, and people told me I was good at it. And by the time I was 27, I was still teaching, I was still with my college boyfriend, and I felt like my life was good, but it felt like a life I had sort of arrived in versus a life I had actively chosen. And when I looked ahead to the future, I kind of felt like I knew exactly what to expect. Like each day was kind of the same, and I hadn't had a new thought in years. So I did something that surprised even me, and I signed up for an improv comedy class. And in that class, I learned how to do something that was really scary. Walk out onto a stage in front of people who could see me with their eyes, and not knowing anything about the situation that was about to unfold, who I was gonna be, what was happening, make a bold choice and trust my brain to justify it later. And after practicing this week after week after week, at the end of the class, I made 2 bold choices. While my horrified family watched, I left teaching, and I also left my relationship, my wonderful boyfriend, because I wasn't sure I would ever be brave enough to make this big a change again, so I just needed to change everything all at once. And I decided that if I could do anything, I would try to tell audio stories. And this wasn't completely out of the blue. When I was in kindergarten, I tried to refuse to learn to read because I thought that if I could read, nobody would read to me anymore. And the thing I loved more than anything was listening to stories. I would lose like whole days listening to books on tape in my favorite chair. I had whole sections of books committed to memory. And as I kind of started to retrace the breadcrumbs that I had left for myself over the years, I realized I'd been recording interviews and interactions with friends and family for years that I had sort of stockpiled in my iTunes library with no idea of what to do with them. So I realized, okay, to be an audio producer, all I need to do is to find the perfect, ironclad, bulletproof story that is gonna change the world and no one can say anything bad about ever. And that is gonna prove to myself and everyone else that I have dismantled my life as I know it for a good reason. So while I waited for that perfect story to arrive, I dinked around on the internet and I got a barista job and I talked to people in the industry. And by the time New Year's rolled around, I was several months into my new life and I had made not a single audio story. So when I woke up on New Year's Day and realized I had overslept the polar bear plunge, I had this sinking feeling of dread. Because while I had told myself and my friends that I was gonna jump in that water, I had not set an alarm. I hadn't even made a plan for how I was going to get to Coney Island, as though just intending to do something was gonna make it happen. And I realized if I kept intending to become an audio producer, I was just gonna oversleep my new life. So I made another bold choice in the form of a New Year's resolution to do an interview every single day with a new person. And I figured no matter how bad I was at it, after 365 times, I would be a little bit better. And I was pretty bad at it. I mean, to start, I almost forgot the first day of that New Year's resolution. I got in like right under the wire, 11:30 p.m. in Times Square, and you can hear a couple seconds of what that sounded like. I All right, here we are in Times. Are we in Times Square, Kelsey?
We're almost there.
Okay.
But yeah, we are. No, we are.
I mean, it's lit up enough to be.
I'm ready to be interviewed.
All right, you're ready to be interviewed. Michael, what is it that drives you as a human being?
Love, friendship, and a desire to be, to live, laugh, and love, okay? That's basically it.
Okay.
Edit this, right?
Yes.
Edit this, right?
The good news is it left a lot of room for improvement. And I did, improvement, it was slow. It was slow. Every single time I went up to a new person, a stranger, and asked to interview them, felt like getting on stage with no idea what was about to happen. And I did get rejected, and not all the interviews were great, but I did actually start to get a little bit better. And I started to have a lot of new thoughts. And in between talking with the UPS guy and the pharmacist and the dance class drummer and my grandma, I was hearing tons of stories. Not the perfect story, but a lot of stories that I wanted to share. And that is what, in an effort to share those stories, I taught myself just enough audio editing to piece them together into what would become my first show, Your Story Here, which got picked up by a network. And it was in doing the thing every single day that I went from intending to be an audio producer to actually becoming one. And it's easy to look behind you and trace a tidy narrative between how I went from being a teacher to an audio producer, as though it was inevitable. But in the moment, any story just feels like a series of choices that you make and need to justify later. So nobody knows what story you might be originating right now. Any of us might be originating right now. But it can start with a bold choice. Thanks.